Candace, would you like to start, please? Our DA Global Chair.
Sure, I would love to. Thank you so much, Betsy. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you tuning in to this very special event sponsored by our Global Seniors Caucus. My name is Candace Karistan, and it is my honor to serve this organization and Americans all around the world in my capacity as International Chair for Democrats Abroad. If this is your first event, if this is your 100th event with us, we're glad that you're here to learn a little bit more about the Windfall Elimination Provision, or WEP, what Democrats Abroad is doing about this, and how you can join us in the fight to correct what has turned into a very significant and damaging effect for many US citizens living outside of the United States. So just want to start by saying a little bit more about what Democrats Abroad is. So we are actually an official arm of the Democratic Party for the estimated 9 million US and dual citizens who are living outside of the United States. So this includes people who were born in the US and moved abroad, or maybe they were born abroad and have an American parent. All of these beautiful, unique stories collectively come together to form our constituency, and that's our role at Democrats Abroad, is to make sure that we are plugging back into US politics, and at the end of the day that we are mobilizing as a constituency to get out the overseas vote, and at the end of the day have an impact getting more Democrats into office who will work to remedy not just this issue, but as we know, many issues that are currently impacting our country negatively. So a little bit about Democrats Abroad. We have about 50 country committees all around the world. So from Australia to Argentina, up to where our chair, Betsy, is for the Global Seniors Caucus in Finland. We have US citizens all around the world who have come together, put their hand up, and are volunteering to do just that, advocate on behalf of our constituency and mobilize the overseas vote. We also have 11 different caucuses, constituency caucuses and councils throughout Europe, the Americas, Middle East, Africa, and Asia. And all of these groups collectively help keep Americans abroad, like yourself, informed of your rights and participate in the political process. If you aren't yet a member of one of our caucuses or councils, such as the Global Seniors Caucus, I encourage you to go to democratsabroad.org/caucuses, where you can see all of them and sign up and stay informed about specific issues that you may be interested in, that we here at Democrats Abroad are tackling. So no matter where you are, you can join. We have members from just about every single country around the world, and we're voting out of every single state and every single US congressional district. So again, Democrats Abroad is everywhere. We have our work cut out for us. We know that we made great strides in 2018, in 2020, and again, most recently in 2022 with that ominous red wave that never materialized, actually picking up a Senate seat, flipping state legislatures so that we do have Democratic trifectas in states like Michigan, like Minnesota, where we now are able to do more advocacy work for voters like you and improve that process of voting from abroad. Just want to say a few more things about that. We do have some very important races coming up. On April 4th, there is the Wisconsin Supreme Court seat. So if you are a Wisconsin voter, please act now. If you have relatives, family, friends back in the United States voting in Wisconsin, please make sure that they are casting a vote this coming Tuesday, April 4th, for that Supreme Court seat. As we know, quite a bit is being decided at the state level, state and local level. So these races are expected to be low turnout. The more people we can get showing up to the polls, the better the outcome is going to be. Pennsylvania, another race coming up in May for the judiciary. And then this fall, we also have New Jersey, Virginia, Mississippi, Kentucky, some of those with important governorships up for grabs, as well as state legislatures. So votefromabroad.org if one of those states is yours, and even if it's not, it's good to fill out that ballot request form so that you stay on the voter rolls. With that, we will turn back to why you are all here today, which is to talk about the Windfall Elimination Provision. I really want to thank our Global Seniors Caucus for their initiative with this event, as well as to our guest speaker for joining us today. WEP has become a priority issue for us, and we are so grateful that you are here with us today to learn more about it and how we can tackle the issue together with your help at Democrats Abroad. So thank you for tuning in, and with that, I will pass to Betsy.
Thank you very much, Candace. Good morning, afternoon, and evening to those joining us globally. My name is Betsy Attore. I serve as chair of our Democrats Abroad Global Senior Caucus. I invite you to share in the chat box where you vote, where you're tuning in from, and yes, if WEP affects you. So today we focus on WEP, the Windfall Elimination Provision, which is a statutory provision in the US law, which affects benefits paid by the Social Security Administration. It became signed into law in April 1983. As I'm sure you're aware, WEP applies to most people who receive both a pension from non-covered work, including certain foreign pensions, and Social Security benefits based on fewer than 30 years of substantial earnings in Social Security covered employment or self-employment. Many retired Americans who live or once lived abroad have paid into Social Security, but they do not receive their full benefits or fair share of them from Social Security when they retire. WEP was meant to eliminate the advantage some workers received from overlapping full retirement pensions supplemented by partial Social Security covered employment. This is not the case with many people affected by WEP. Also, some beneficiaries only learn of WEP after they have retired, and the reduced benefits substantially affect their and their family's financial standing in later years. Now I ask our Senior Caucus Vice Chair, Jim Dobson, to introduce tonight's speaker. Jim, over to you.
Jim, you're muted.
Jim, yeah, you're muted, Jim.
I apologize. It's my privilege to introduce our speaker, Nancy J. Altman. Nancy has a 45-year background in the areas of Social Security and private pensions. She is president of Social Security Works and chair of the Strengthened Social Security Coalition. In 2017, Nancy Pelosi appointed Ms. Altman to the Social Security Advisory Board, which is a bipartisan, independent federal governmental agency established in 1994 to advise the President, Congress, and the Commissioner of Social Security. Ms. Altman is the author of The Battle for Social Security, From FDR's Vision to Bush's Gamble, and of the article, The Truth About Social Security, The Founders' Words Refute Revisionist History, Zombie Lies, and Common Misunderstandings. She is also co-author of Social Security Works, Why Social Security Isn't Going Broke, and How Expanding It Will Help Us All. She has shared her Social Security expertise on numerous television and radio shows and has published op-eds in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and USA Today. She's been on the faculty of Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government, and she has taught courses at Harvard Law School. Ms. Altman chairs the board of directors of the Pension Rights Center and is a member of the boards of directors of the Alliance for Retired Americans Educational Fund, the Economic Opportunity Institute, Latinos for Secure Retirement, and the Institute for America's Future. Ms. Altman has an AB from Harvard University and a JD from the University of Pennsylvania Law School. Any questions you may have, will be taken after Nancy has spoken. And we will ask that you use the Q&A feature to give those questions. Again, please give us your questions after Nancy has spoken. We will give you the opportunity to do so. Now it's my great pleasure to turn the floor over to Nancy Altman. Floor is yours, Nancy.
Thank you so much. And this really is a perfect, the timing of this session is really perfect because just yesterday, the Board of Trustees of Social Security released their annual trustees report. So I'm going to put WEP GPO in context, and let me start with the report. The beginning benefits were first paid in 1940, and starting in 1941, every year the Board of Trustees issues a report to Congress. They're on online. They've never missed filing a report, and as Social Security has never missed a payment. And we've had wars, we've had recessions. It's always been there for us. As you know, Social Security is the people's pension. It's wage insurance that provides benefits it replaces wages in the event they are lost as a result of, or in the event of old age, disability, or the death of a breadwinner. They are the nation's really most important form of retirement income, and they are often the only disability insurance that workers have, and the primary source of life insurance. Like any insurance, there are about 40 actuaries in the Social Security Administration who are working all day, every day, all year long to take a look at the income coming in, the costs going out, to make sure that Social Security can always pay their benefits. There's a lot of misinformation about Social Security, and headlines met with, oh, this program is going bankrupt. I'm sure you've all heard that. The benefits aren't going to be there for you, and so forth. This is just not the case. When Social Security is extremely responsibly funded, extremely well financed, and its resources and its income and outgo are looked at very closely to give people a sense of confidence. I mean, it's in the name. Social Security is supposed to provide security, a sense of peace of mind that the benefits will be there for you, as I say, in the event of disability, death, or old age, and they will be. In fact, in some ways, Social Security benefits are really not large enough. So if we can start with the first slide. There we go. And so that's just the introduction, the name of the organization. We can shift to the next slide, please. This shows Social Security as a percent of gross domestic product. So Social Security currently costs just around 5% of gross domestic product. At the end of this century, at the end of the 21st century beyond, it's only going to cost about 6% of gross domestic product. So as you see, it's basically a level line. And you know, this additional 1% of gross domestic product is fully affordable. In fact, the United States, when it responded to COVID, spent more than 1% of GDP in its response. After 9/11, military costs went up by more than 1% of gross domestic product. And those were surprise events that we had to scramble to get ready for. Everyone knows that the population is aging, the baby boom is retiring, the fertility rates are lower, and that there's this increase in cost of this 1% of GDP. So there's no question that Social Security is fully affordable. Whether we expand it or cut it, whether we eliminate WEP GPO or double down on it is a matter of values, not affordability. And with that, may we have the next slide? This really, it makes the basically the same point. This is the percent of GDP that these other nations spend on just their counterpart programs. I mean, obviously, a lot of these countries have what we're pushing for, Medicare for all, universal health insurance provided through the government and so forth. This is just the retirement, survivors and disability programs. And as you can see, all of these countries, Austria, France, Germany, Japan, Spain, and there could have been others on this chart as well, spend more, often double what the Social Security, what the United States will spend at the end of the century. So again, it just reinforces the idea that Social Security is fully affordable, and what we do with WEP GPO and what we do with benefits more generally is a question of values, not affordability. The next slide, please. In fact, Social Security, the United States, as often with many of its benefits, is on the low end of the international, when you look across other countries of what they spend on their pension plans, how much retirement income they replace. So again, when Franklin Roosevelt signed Social Security into law on August 14th, 1935, he called it a cornerstone on which to build. The benefits our Social Security works extremely well. It's why we named our organization Social Security Works, because it does work. It works extremely well, especially compared to its private sector counterparts. It spends less than a penny of every dollar spent on administration. That's an efficiency rate you cannot find in the private sector. It's perfectly portable from job to job. It's very secure, backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. It's very fair in its distribution. And as a consequence, it's extremely popular. Its one shortcoming is that its benefits, by any measure, are too low. In absolute terms, they are only about $15,000 a year. They're extremely important. They reduce, they eliminate, without Social Security, raises about 20 million people out of poverty every year, including over a million children, and lessens the poverty of millions more. But its benefits are not adequate in replacing wages, which is the whole point of the program. The idea is that you should be able to retire and maintain your standard of living for the rest of your life. Experts say that you need about 70 or 80%. If you're lower income and have not had an ability to save, you might need a little bit higher percentage. If you're higher income, you might be able to just save a bit, but you need somewhere around 60, 70, 80%. Social Security only replaces about 40% for a middle income worker, and that's just not adequate. And this is a time when when private pensions are disappearing in the United States, when we've had stagnating wages, we talk about, because there is a looming retirement income crisis because of this. As important as Social Security is to the American people and to people who are now in their retirement years, it's going to be more important to the younger population. It's going to be more important than ever. It's going to be relied on more, and it is going to be, and it should be increased. Now, here's some good news, that as polarized as the American people are over so many hot button issues, and even seeing it from abroad, you probably even see even more sharply just how polarized we are in our politics these days. We are not about Social Security. Social Security is, whether you're a MAGA Republican or whether you're a union member, you agree, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, independent, whether you're young or you're old, whatever gender or race, people agree that overwhelmingly agree and agree strongly that Social Security should not be cut. It should be that it's going to be more important than ever, that it should be expanded, and that if there is a shortfall given income and wealth inequality, the wealthy should pay more. But if it requires everyone to pay more, they're willing to make sure those benefits are there. The younger you are, the less likely you are to think that Social Security will be there. But that's because of a lot of misinformation and by opponents of Social Security who want to undermine confidence in the program. It used to be in the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, there would be some, and the 1935 debate, there's a lot of colorful language where people would call Social Security socialism and say it's not an appropriate role of government and so forth, but they always lost. And somehow I don't believe they all disappeared. What happened was that they realized that they had to change their tactic. So you will not find a politician today who says, hey, we don't like Social Security, we think it's socialism, we want to get rid of it. Instead they say, we want to save Social Security, we love Social Security, but we can't afford Social Security. And as I said, to just emphasize, whether we eliminate WEP GPO, whether we modify WEP GPO, whether we, and to be clear, we mentioned the Windfall Elimination Provision. GPO is the governmental pension offset, which affects spousal benefits, widow and widower benefits. It's related. It's, again, if receiving a pension from non-covered service. So our organization is fighting hard to eliminate WEP and GPO, and I will talk about the politics of that. So if we can have the next slide, please. So Social Security is forecasting, as I said, the trustees report just came out, and it is forecasting a manageable shortfall that looks like it will occur in the early 2030s. Now, it's been forecasting this for a while. Congress has not acted, I think, because Congress has been trying to do what the American people do not want. They've been trying to come up with what they call a bipartisan package that is a combination of benefit cuts and tax increases. And as I say, the American people do not want that. They do not want a penny of benefits cut, and that's the right policy as well, given the retirement income policy. One of my favorite polls was taken by Pew in the lead up to the 2016 campaign. And at that point, Donald Trump was still in, Governor Kasich was in, Ted Cruz was still, it was during the primary season. On the Democratic side, it was Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. And the pollsters asked, who do you support? And then asked them a range of questions to get their views, foreign policy, domestic policy, various kinds of things. And everything lined up the way you would expect them to line up, except Social Security, where everyone, no matter who they supported, whether they supported Ted Cruz or John Kasich, they supported Bernie Sanders' position of no cuts and expansion to Social Security. Well, the Democrats have returned to their root. In 2008, just to show the party platforms, as you can see, it's really hard to differentiate the Democratic position from the Republican. The Democratic platform at that point said, we will fulfill our obligation to strengthen Social Security and to make sure that it provides guaranteed benefits Americans can count on now and the future generations. We will not privatize it. It says nothing about cutting it. And the Republican platform is, we are committed to putting Social Security on a sound fiscal basis. So how do you possibly make a decision based on that? You're going to decide on other issues because it sounds like both parties are in agreement on Social Security. But as I said, having Bernie Sanders run really shifted the debate. There were more and more Elizabeth Warren and more Democrats who were returning to their roots and understanding that we should be expanding Social Security. It was expanded it was enacted in 1935. Just 4 years later, survivors benefits and spousal family benefits were added. Then we had World War II where there was distractions and nothing was added at that point. But in 1956, disability insurance was added. In 1972, we added Medicare. 1965, we added Medicare and Medicaid. 1972, Medicare was expanded to include people with disabilities, not just seniors. And Medicare, as I say, was intended to be a first step. Medicare for seniors as a first step. And then, but since then, in the last 50 years, there have been no additions. So it's time to expand. And the Democrats realize that. If you look at the next slide, please. It shows the 2016 platform, which in this case, it's very clear Democrats will expand Social Security. You look at the Republicans, they say, we've got to do something, try to fearmonger about it. And says all options should be considered to preserve Social Security, another fear-mongering. As Republicans, we oppose tax increases. So they say they're against tax increases, but which only leaves benefit cuts to close the shortfall. But as you saw at the State of the Union, when President Biden correctly said Republicans want to cut the program, they all called out, you're a liar. So it's clear what's going on. They understand how toxic that is with voters. So again, whether we expand or cut the program, whether we eliminate WEP GPO or not, is a matter of values. So let me zero in on WEP GPO in the last few minutes. So if we can have the next slide, please. And this is, again, it's a question of values, whether we expand or cut Social Security more generally. And that's absolutely the case for the Windfall Elimination Provision and governmental pension offset. It's very important that the same way that astronauts don't talk about, gazillion light years, trillions of light years, they talk, zillions of miles, they talk in terms of light years because the numbers are just too large. A favorite tactic of the opponents is to talk about the cost in terms of dollars, but you're talking about over 75 years. So this amounts are huge, billions, trillions, and it's very hard to get your mind around. The much better way to talk about it is in terms of percent of taxable payroll. We currently, Social Security, we currently pay 6.2% up to a maximum of $160,200, matched dollar for dollar by employers. That's the percent of taxable payroll. And the eliminating WEP GPO entirely is just 0.12% of taxable payroll. So if you increase the taxable payroll by just 0.06% on employers and employees each, that would do it. So let me go to what's going on. As you know, there were legislation last year, and I think it's just been reintroduced, to just eliminate WEP GPO, but there's no pay for in that. the Democrats have introduced expansion plans. Representative John Larson, who was chairman of the Social Security Subcommittee, introduced a bill with over 200 co-sponsors, which eliminated WEP GPO. President Biden, when he was a candidate, ran on eliminating WEP GPO. But so I do believe there's consensus around and there are provisions, I should say also, there are those who believe that we should not just eliminate it completely. There was a bipartisan bill, Representatives Neal and Brady of the Ways and Means Committee, who had a bill, but it had winners and losers. It changed the way that WEP GPO was calculated. We opposed that. There was then Congressman Neal introduced his own bill that eliminated the losers. So it didn't eliminate WEP GPO. Not everyone was better off, but you wouldn't be worse off. You might be better off, you might be worse off. So we were supportive of that. But the best is to eliminate it completely. I don't think it's going to happen in a freestanding bill, and I actually don't think it should. There are those on the disability community who want to get rid of the 5-month waiting period because people go homeless once they've been adjudicated as disabled. They can't get benefits for 5 months, and they're unable to work. So that is another provision we're fighting to eliminate, and there are many others, and they all should be in a package that restores Social Security to restores it to balance and has these expansions in it. The good news is, and this is why it's so important for this organization to be focused on this, that we just talked about the red wave did not materialize. Our polling shows it didn't materialize because of the votes of seniors. All it takes is a small percentage of seniors in the swing states to move. We call seniors always voters because seniors always vote. And we shift that. So if we can get the Democrats, urge them to push to expand Social Security while requiring the wealthiest to pay for the expansions and the shortfall, which can be done without any undue burden on them. The Republicans will probably filibuster it in the Senate. They won't, but the Democrats can push. They make it a 2024 issue. They run on it in 2024. They retain the White House and the Senate. They win back the House, and we can then have legislation, I think, as early as 2025 that expands Social Security across the board and in targeted ways, including eliminating WEP GPO. But we all have to be out there urging the Democrats on and making sure that people understand that the parties have very different issues on this, very different positions on Social Security more generally. So with that, thank you, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much for your inspiring words, Nancy. I'm going to ask members now to put your questions in the Q&A box, and I would also ask everyone to vote on how you think the questions should be answered, from the most popular to the not so popular. Just click on the thumbs up sign. Now while you're doing that, I'd like Brendan Reed, who's the chair of the Seniors Caucus WEP Committee, to give us a few words. Brendan, the floor is yours.
Brendan, I think you might be mute. Oh, there you go.
Okay. Thank you, Betsy. It's an honor to speak and present today on this critical issue. Next slide. Yes, first, a little background on Democrats abroad and the WEP. This is an issue that has been growing in importance as the WEP clawbacks stretches ever deeper into the finances of Americans abroad. WEP has been the purview of the Taxation Task Force, chaired superbly by Rebecca Lammers. In 2021, the decision was made to assign WEP to the new Seniors Caucus, which created a WEP committee. These moves give WEP the critical focused attention it needs. WEP repeal legislation has been reintroduced in the current 118th Congress. The leading bills are standalone, H.R. 82 and its Senate companion, S. 597, the Social Security Fairness Act. Here is the stance of Democrats abroad. We actively support H.R. 82 S. 597. We also actively support Social Security financing. We want to see repeal passed. Our preference is to see it done as a standalone bill. While repeal has bipartisan support, which makes passage more likely, finance reform, unfortunately, in this divided Congress does not. Next slide. So what is Democrats abroad doing on the WEP issue? We have been and continue to support WEP plus GPO repeal with these actions. Researching on WEP plus GPO policies, reaching out to US-based WEP plus GPO repeal advocates. There is an active Facebook utilizing organization, the National WEP and GPO Repeal Movement, that seeks repeal and reports developments. Informing members through our WEP and social media presence. Contacting and obtaining H.R. 82 S. 597 sponsorship from our individual congresspeople and senators, and raising in conversations with lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Sending out a call to action, asking members to contact their congresspeople and senators to co-sponsor passage of H.R. 82 S. 597. Considering an awareness campaign for traditional media and shareable when published on social channels. Next slide. So a WEP repeal will only happen if you get involved. Here's how. Reach out to your congresspeople and senators. Spread the word to other Americans abroad. Write letters to the editor. Make social media posts whenever WEP plus GPO and Social Security come up. Sharing with us your experiences with WEP Clawback and give us permission to post them on social media channels. And finally, give us your permission to reach out to you should we decide to reach out to the media who want to interview those impacted by WEP. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Brendan, for all your work you do on behalf of BA seniors regarding WEP. And now we have 4 questions for Nancy, which comes directly from the Senior Caucus Steering Committee to be asked by our own Karen Lee. Over to you, Karen.
Thanks, Betsy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not muted. Great. So Nancy, thank you. You've touched on this before, but let's just go over it one more time. Is it true, as some politicians tell us, that Social Security funds will be totally depleted in a few years if WEP is eliminated? Yes or no?
The answer is no, but let me add just something to that, and that is that, and again, there's a lot of misinformation. This is the trustees report. There is a shortfall. Whenever you project out 75 years, sometimes you're going to have unintended surpluses, unintended deficits. And there is currently a $2.8 trillion surplus in Social Security's accumulated reserve. That is being drawn down. Congress does have to act before the latest is 2034, it's sometime in the early 2030s. But once those funds have been drawn down, there is, Social Security can still pay 80% of the benefits. Now that's not enough. We got to be able to pay 100%. So they do have to act. But WEP GPO, as I mentioned, is only 0.12% of taxable payroll. So that absolutely, in fact, that one slide I showed, we don't have to go back to it, but it showed that it would cause depletion 1 year sooner. So instead of benefits not being paid in full in 2034, it would be 2033. But that is not the reason to not eliminate. It is a, we do need to bring in more revenue, but it's not, WEP GPO is certainly not the cause of the shortfall, or would be the cause.
Right. So in your view now, really, what are the chances of WEP being repealed? Near future, middle future, slightly longer term?
I think actually they're quite high. There's people understand there's an issue. I think there on that freestanding bill, there was something like 300 co-sponsors. You know, that's more than half the House. It would be harder on the Senate side. But I think it will happen as part of a larger expansion bill, because there has to be action before 2033 or 2034. And if I can, and this is a point I meant to make, but but be very careful, because as you say, there are politicians who are going to tell you, oh, you know, you can't do it, it's too expensive, which is wrong. And there are also politicians, there's a bill that's being developed behind closed doors now by Senators Bill Cassidy from Louisiana and Senator Angus King from Vermont. And they are going around and telling the WEP GPO folks, hey, you should support our bill because we're going to eliminate WEP GPO. Be very careful. They're not showing all their cards. They're not showing all their provisions, but reportedly, what we're calling is they are proposing WEP GPO for all. They're eliminating WEP GPO, but they are increasing the retirement age and decimating middle-class benefits by changes in the benefit formula, so that WEP GPO folks won't be any better off. It's just everybody else's benefits will be as low. In fact, I did some calculations, and in some cases, benefits will be lower than what WEP GPO folks get today, which of course is way too low. So you gotta be, you know, this is an issue where, because the American people are so united, the politicians are gonna be saying what you wanna hear, and you've gotta ask the additional questions. You're eliminating WEP GPO, what else is in your bill? Because if they're eliminating WEP GPO to get your support, but undermining benefits more generally, everyone will be worse off. But in terms of the short answer to your question is, I'm actually quite confident that if the Democrats win in 2024, we might be able to get legislation through, or if we don't in 2025, we can show the American people where the parties disagree. And part of what will be in that bill, I would hope, and we will fight for, is what elimination, 100% elimination of WEP GPO, not just for new beneficiaries, but for current beneficiaries as well.
So we go back to reading the fine print again.
Yes.
To turn this more toward a personal level with an example. I've noticed a number of questions in the chat box as we were going along the same lines. Let's take an example and call her Mary Smith. Mary lives abroad now. She worked younger years in the US. She's worked outside the US. She paid both into Social Security and also into a foreign state pension system. She has scant savings, if any. She doesn't know about WEP. She just hopes for the best during her retirement. So how can she find out if WEP affects her? And more importantly, is there anything she can do to correct her situation if she figures out that she's been shortchanged on her benefits?
Unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for her. You can go onto the website. Now, actually, another point that, you know, by law, the Social Security Administration is supposed to send out earnings and benefit statements every year to every worker over age 25 who's not currently getting benefits. So all of us should be getting in the mail without our requesting it, unless we don't want to get it by mail, an earnings statement. Now, unfortunately, when they were sending, even though that is the law that they're supposed to do it, a commissioner, who was a Republican commissioner, claimed budget constraints, and the agency, in all fairness, has been starved. It's very underfunded and long wait times, unfortunately, and so forth. But they claimed on budget terms that they were not going to send out those earnings statements anymore. And unfortunately, those earnings statements did not differentiate and did not they showed what your estimated benefit would be, but then if you were subject to WEP GPO, it didn't reflect that. And people were completely shocked because they thought they were getting, $1,200 a month, and they wound up being told they were only getting $500 a month or something like that, all because of WEP GPO. So but now those benefits are not available. Those statements, you can go on being mailed out. You can go on to mysocialsecurity.gov and set up an account, and you can download your earnings statements. I'm not sure I know they've modified them. I'm not sure they yet reflect WEP GPO, but the best way to find out so you won't be surprised is unfortunately to probably call the Social Security Administration, one of their teleconferencing and their 800 number, and tell them that you think you might be subject to WEP GPO, and can they give you that. There is effort to at least have the earnings statements reflect accurately what those projected benefits will be. So if you do go online and find out, but unfortunately, because of the way the law is set up at this point, it would take an act of Congress to undo it. So other than working more years under Social Security going forward, there's not, because it's calculated based on how much work you do under Social Security and in your under your non-covered employment. But again, unfortunately, I don't have good news. I don't have any optimistic or good advice, but it is part of the retirement income crisis we're facing. And that is why all of us should be working hard, not just to eliminate WEP GPO for those of people who are affected by it, and for those I'm not affected by WEP GPO, but we're working hard to eliminate it because we think it's just wrong and benefits are too low. But we're trying to urge all Americans to really fight against for the elimination of WEP GPO. I would hope all of you would also join our fight to expand benefits across the board for all beneficiaries, because although WEP GPO, they're way too low, they're not high enough for anyone.
Great. I think we could do that. And one more quick one, and actually this ties into the same thing. Setting up that My Social Security account can sometimes be dicey if you don't have a US phone number, but that's another issue.
Yes.
One of our members asked on Facebook, do you know if there's a guide to Social Security, and which would include WEP, specifically for Americans living abroad? Because we have different approaches and issues sometimes than folks in the States. Are you aware of such a guide?
That's very interesting. The Social Security Administration has a lot of information online, and they have a lot of information about WEP GPO, and they also have information about totalization agreements and other other issues that affect people abroad. I'm not aware. I don't know that they don't exist, but I'm not aware. There's a National Academy of Social Insurance that I'm a founding member of, and we do study groups, and we put out publications, but I'm positive we haven't put anything out on that, although you're giving me an idea that we should. And AARP puts out lots of information, but I would have to do my own Google search to find out if the Social Security Administration does that. It might, but I don't know. It's a very good point.
Great. And that's really good to hear. Nancy, thanks from me. And now back to Betsy and to Jim, and they've got the questions from the Q&A box. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nancy. Thanks so much, Karen. Okay, we're going to go through the ranked questions now. And the first question is rather short. It's from Louisa Spangler. And the question is, if the windfall elimination policy is itself eliminated, just a moment, would we be entitled to a refund of the amount that was cut from our Social Security benefits due to receiving a foreign pension?
Excellent question. I mean, again, the devil is in the details. So the first question is, will Congress not touch WEP GPO? Will it modify it? Will it eliminate it? And if it eliminates it, will it do it just prospectively? Will it do it, and will it do it only for new beneficiaries? So that's even, you've been receiving it, you're out of luck. It's only new beneficiaries. It's for current beneficiaries, but only prospectively, or it's retroactively. And that, again, let's hope we're in that at that moment when we're trying to get Congress to do the right thing. And my guess is the way these things normally go, it will probably just be prospective. It would be very hard to get retroactive payments, but it's, again, and of course our, the goal of good negotiating is push for everything you want, and at least you'll get some. If you start with what you think is realistic, you may not get anything. So it's something certainly to push for and to try to get, whether in the actual legislation that comes out. Let's hope we at least get the elimination of WEP GPO, because even that is going to be a fight.
Thank you. Jim, over to you.
Okay, let's go with a question from Alan Shapiro. And I think this may relate to a bigger question of agreements between governmental agreements between countries. But his question is, I started receiving a US Social Security plus a German Social Security due to WEP. The US Social Security reduced my monthly payment by half of my German Social Security. However, I was told by FBU that they will restore this amount if I get a letter from German Social Security saying that they recalculated my German Social Security after internally acquiring my US work history data. Is that true?
That I don't know. That's beyond my expertise, but it wouldn't surprise me. It sounds reasonable. It sounds that it could be, but unfortunately, that's one to I think to really focus on experts of totalization agreements, and particularly the German American agreement.
Yeah, I was thinking that would be a totalization agreement issue in all likelihood, which will be individual to each country.
Exactly.
Okay. The next question from Diane. The Social Security Administration has no way to account for international currency fluctuations. This often results in WEP penalties which exceed 1/2 of the foreign pension. This violates the Social Security Administration's WEP guarantee. We are the only WEP affectees faced with this inequity. How can US expats affected by WEP also be included in the SSA's WEP guarantee? Right now, it doesn't work for us.
That's again, these are really interesting questions that I appreciate being part of this webinar, because I'm learning a lot myself from this. And I think the most important thing is to educate your representatives, because WEP GPO, people think of it as, in fact, it's always talked about, as you know, Social Security is mandatory, but except for state and local employees, and those are you opt in rather than it be mandatory. And about 75% of state and local employees are covered by Social Security, so there's no WEP or GPO issue for them. This all started in 1983 when WEP GPO were put in. Same with federal workers prior to 1983, they were not included under Social Security, so they were affected by WEP GPO, but anyone hired after, I think, starting January 1, 1984, was covered by Social Security. So you only have about 25% of state and local employees that are affected by WEP and GPO. And when Congress talks about the issue, and when most of us think about the issue, we're thinking about them, and they are very sympathetic. It's firefighters and first responders and teachers. It's a number of people, but it's only in certain states. It's not in every state. And honestly, before you reached out to me to talk, as I say, I'm not a WEP GPO expert. I'm more generally Social Security. I had not thought about the specific issues involving those who are getting who are living abroad, either living abroad and have these issues about fluctuating currencies, or living abroad and getting pensions not from a state and local, but from another country. These are all fascinating issues. And I think the thing to do to respond to them, because I think that is a question, there is supposed to be the guarantee that you're not going to lose more than half, but you're right. If you've got a fluctuating currency, there's no way to control for that. These are things you should, in addition to reaching out and urging the elimination, you should be educating them about the particular issues in facing Democrats, or not just Democrats, all, as I say, this is an issue that affects everyone, that Americans abroad. And I will bring my knowledge that I am gaining in this session to my colleagues as well. So the short answer is you're educating me. I don't have an answer. I don't think there is a way to take care of that fluctuating currency. The best thing, of course, to do is to eliminate WEP GPO, and you still would have a fluctuating amount of Social Security you're getting, but that's anybody living abroad with any kind of payment.
Thank you. Jim.
Yes, I've got a couple of questions I'm going to try and roll in together. Starting with one from David Altaner. He asked, does WEP only apply if you've worked less than 30 years in the United States? And there's similar questions about when WEP applies relating to if you delay taking your Social Security, your U.S. Social Security benefit, say till you're 70 years old, would that exempt you from WEP or in any way affect your status?
Okay, the first point is that what the Social Security Administration looks at, or what the law looks at in calculating your benefit, the administration, the one that does the calculation, is how many years you've had of covered service, of service where you've contributed to Social Security. So it is true that if it's 30 years is the cutoff, if you've worked more than 30 years, contributed to Social Security more than 30 years, you're not affected by WEP GPO. But if you have less than 30 years, you are affected, and the fewer years you have, the more you are affected by it. Now, the other thing about Social Security is that the concept is to be neutral about when people retire. So not to either subsidize early retirement or penalize early retirement, and not to subsidize delayed retirement or to penalize delayed retirement. For every month that you delay claiming Social Security, you do receive more, because a larger monthly benefit, it's adjusted because you're of course receiving it for 1 month less. So if you delay retirement, you get substantially, if you delay retirement, for every year you retire before what they call your full retirement age, which is currently age 67 for those born in 1960 or later, it's about a 6.5% to 7% reduction in your monthly benefit. And for every year you delay after, and that's permanent for the rest of your life, because as you know, it's one of the values of Social Security is you can outlive savings, but you cannot outlive Social Security. It is there. If you and your spouse both live to 110, you'll get those benefits for however long you live. And so you will receive more. And in fact, maybe this is an answer to an earlier question too, that if you delay, there's no reason to delay after age 70 because there are no more adjustments. But if it's possible to delay until after age 70, you will get a larger benefit. That's true for everyone. That's not anything specific to WEP GPO. But unfortunately, you will still be affected by WEP GPO. So you can have a larger benefit, but there's no way to escape from the WEP GPO other than if the more years you work undercovered employment, the lower the reduction in WEP GPO and not after 30 years.
Okay, thanks very much. We have a question here from Meg Porter. She says, a couple of years ago, I received a statement from the Social Security office, which gave the monthly Social Security amount they will be giving me if I retire at 65. Can I rely on this statement to be accurate? And if so, how much of it will be taxed?
Okay, well, first of all, unfortunately, there are a couple of things that are very important about those statements. One, and this is the statement I was mentioning, that by law, it is supposed to come out every single year, be mailed out. You don't have to request it. You don't have to go online, mailed out. But they're violating the law. They're not doing it anymore. And you can go online if you have a My Social Security account and download it. They, unfortunately, and I haven't looked at this lately, they did not, and so I was starting to say, one thing that's very important, and that if you have a statement, it's worth taking your time to look at it carefully, because to make sure that your wages have been reported accurately, Social Security is based on career average wages, your top 35 years indexed. So it approximates a final pay plan, but because it's a public system where it's not the employer and you don't want to game the system, and sometimes people work at very high wages, but then as in the last few years have health problems and have low wages, so you don't want to use final pay in those situations with a Social Security system. It's an index career average, but it's going to really mean that those wages have to be accurate. And the importance of getting those statements every year is to make sure your employer has provided them accurately, because there can be mistakes, there can be typos, there can be all kinds of things. And 20 years after the fact, it would be very hard to prove that those wages are not accurate. The benefits are the best guess based on what your wages are up till that point. So they do give you a kind of ballpark, but you can't rely on them totally, because situations change. You know, you might have additional wages and so forth. And also, at least again, I haven't looked at those statements recently, but the older ones did not take into account WEP GPO, which is why many people were surprised, because they get an earnings statement saying what they were getting, and then they'd walk in and learn that they were only getting half that amount. So you could rely on it's sort of, they're helpful information, but you cannot, the only thing you can rely on is going into the Social Security Administration and having them calculate it. And there are some calculators online that you can use as well.
Thank you very much.
And
Over to Jim.
And actually,
go on.
on that point, there are calculators, very good calculators that SSA has. And I actually think they may have one where you put in, if you have a public, now they probably focus on state and local, but it's the same point if you've got a pension from another country, and you might be able to use one of their calculators to get a sense of what your benefit will be. So that's another avenue to explore.
Okay, thank you. Over to Jim.
Okay, there are a number of questions very similar, asking really for a simple explanation of what is WEP? No, what's it trying to eliminate and how
Yes.
is it applied?
Great. So Social Security, as I say, it's insurance against the loss of wages, and it is a replacement of wages. And as I spoke about, if you're low income, you tend to need a higher replacement rate because you don't have as much discretionary income. You might not have savings you can download and so forth. So Social Security's benefit formula is what we call progressive. It's like the progressive, it's kind of a flip side of progressive income tax. Your first dollars, everyone contributes to Social Security from their first dollars, whether you're a minimum wage earner or whether you're Bill Gates. Everybody contributes on their first dollars of earnings up to a maximum of $160,200. Then when it's time to replace, your first dollars are replaced at a higher rate. It's actually a 90% rate. Then if you have sufficient, you've earned more wages, you're a higher income wage earner, you might have the next dollars replaced at 32% and the next dollars at 15%. Because it's a career average, Social Security is not, the formula cannot really differentiate between people who work for 40 years at minimum wage and people who work at very high wages but not covered by Social Security, and then just 10 years at very high wages. They're treated the same. So they're getting a 90% replacement of their first dollars, even though if they'd worked all their career under Social Security, they wouldn't have gotten it. So what the government pension offset is intended to do is to treat those high income workers as if, so that they don't get replaced at that 90% rate, they get replaced at 40%. And you might have to work it out with numbers to see the difference. And it's 40% up to, it can't be reduced more than half your, it's like $550 or something like that. I can't remember exactly the amount, but so the idea is it's a kind of rough justice. The idea is that people who worked and again, let me focus on state and local, but I think it's true with other government plans too. If it's not covered by Social Security, the idea is that what you want is Social Security as your foundation. And then if you don't have I'd like Social Security to be fully adequate, but because it isn't, you often have a private pension on top of it. And what you have in some public sector plans are, instead of it just be a supplement to Social Security, you have the supplement, but you also have the substitute, that you have no Social Security, you just get a pension that's supposed to be both the foundation and the supplement. And so Congress has said, okay, well, we want to treat, they call that a windfall because you're working most of your years, but you're only working a few years under Social Security, but you're being treated as if you worked many years under Social Security. So I don't know if that was a clear enough explanation, but that's the concept behind it. But my own view is that we're talking about people who are working for the public good in state and local, and often it's international teachers that the people are under attack. And we should not be so narrowly focused on. We should be raising benefits for everyone, and we should not worry about those who have not had careers under Social Security. But again, that's the rationale behind it for those who contributed for some years, but not other years. So they are treated as if they were lower income than they are. And they get a higher replacement rate than they would have if Social Security could see that they were really earning they were really higher earners than they appear to be from the formula. Because one more thing about it, because it's based on 35 years, so that if you for years you don't have covered employment, you get 0 in the numerator, and the denominator is 35. So your average is much lower.
Right. Thanks so much for your answers. I hope we haven't tired you out too much.
No, and I hope you've asked excellent questions, and I hope I've answered. Some of this is very, very complicated, but keep fighting, because your cause is right, and I think we're going to win.
Great. I'd just like to invite you, Nancy, to give us your closing thoughts, if you may.
Absolutely. I do think that as the name of my organization says, Social Security works. It is something that really unites us. We're all in it together. We share our risks. We share our responsibilities. And the polling shows that the American people recognize it that way, whether you're living abroad or you're living in the United States, whether you're in the rural or you're in an urban area, no matter what your politics, you value Social Security. We had a pollster tell us that it's beyond a preference, that it's such a strongly held belief, it's a value, and it does represent the best of American values. Its one shortcoming, as I said, is that its benefits are too low for everyone. They're worse for people who are affected by WEP GPO, but they're inadequate for everyone. Too many seniors are just above the poverty line, just one shock away from falling into poverty. So what I urge Democrats abroad is to join with Social Security Works and everyone else who is fighting both to eliminate WEP GPO, but more generally to expand benefits. I think we're all in it together. We can all fight. And I think the answer is to make Democrats see that we want to see this program expand and not cut. Given the income and wealth inequality, we want the very wealthiest to pay their fair share. There's plenty of money. The question is values, not affordability. And if we all work together and fight, I think sometime before the 2030s, we will see an expanded Social Security with benefits assured for the next 75 years and beyond. And part of the expansion I am fighting will be the elimination of WEP and GPO.
Thank you so much, Nancy Altman, for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with us. Thanks to members of the Global Senior Caucus. Thanks to Candace Carriston and Jared Roach, your help with broadcasting, and onward we go. We do have a few announcements to make, and Jim will drop the links in the chat. Just remember our monthly social chat with the Global Disability Caucus every last Friday of the month. Follow us on Twitter, and also follow us on Facebook, and follow the DA Senior Caucus if you would like to join us. And also read the Taxation Task Force report, which reports on the DA tax survey and which is important for all seniors. And I would like to thank you all for attending this very interesting event. Thank you so much, and we appreciate it. And hello to those around the world, you DA members. Thank you very much.
Betsy, I just wanted to say thank you to you as well, and thank you to everyone who participated. I know I learned a lot, and I do just, part of the role, I have to make the ask. We are a donation-funded organization. Volunteers today helped put this together. I hope you found it as informative as I did. If we want to see progress on this and we want to get Democrats elected, more Democrats elected, grow those majorities so that we can change this, we're going to need your help. So if you enjoyed today, Please chip in what you are able. If that's 10, 20, 50 bucks, really every single bit counts and will help us have an even stronger performance in those races I mentioned this year in 2023. And with our eyes on the prize then in that presidential, the Senate and the House races in 2024. So if you enjoyed today, please do support the work of Democrats Abroad and all that we are doing on this front. And thank you for your generosity and for your participation in today's event. So Jared just put that link in the chat. That's democratsabroad.org/donate_GSC. So democratsabroad.org/donate_GSC. So great. Thank you, everyone. And Betsy, back to you.
Okay, thanks very much. And people should know that they will get the recording and they will also get the PowerPoints as well. Karen mentioned, could they also get the chat? How could we make it so that people would be able to get the...
I'll save that so we can send those links out to everyone.
Oh,
now.
that would be brilliant because people asked and Karen asked. Great, that's brilliant. So we're getting a lot of thank yous here. We had about 200 and little over 250 members that joined. So I'm very happy about that. And I was very happy with what Nancy gave to us. I think she's the expert on Social Security in the USA. That's what I was told by Steve Regenstrafe, who's the DNC Senior Council chair. So, you know, we got a really good person and I think she was fantastic. And I'm glad that she learned stuff too. Great. How you doing, Brendan? It's morning for you, isn't it? You're muted, Brendan.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, yeah, we're actually seeing some sunshine out here, which is a rare commodity this time of year on the wet coast.
Okay.
And yeah, I think this went very, very well. Thank you, and thanks everyone here.
Yes, great. And Jared will send out the recording to everyone with the PowerPoints and also the chat, which would be great. Okay.
Well, thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and until the next Democrats Abroad event.
Great. Thanks very much, Candace. Appreciate it.
Bye, everyone.